I'm CJ Jewell.
And I'm Pierce Butler.
And welcome to Movie Busters, where we break down our and your favorite movies alike. Today's podcast episode is the second part of our three-part series on the original trilogy, my personal favorite, Empire Strikes Back. So, Pierce, why don't you start us off?
Well, we're going to talk about the Battle of Hoth. So the Battle of Hoth is also known as the attack on Hoth, which is on a planet called, well, it's an ice planet. It's called Hoth, of course.
Wow.
It's the assault on a base called Echo Base. And it was a major battle that was fought in the year 3 ABY, which is in Star Wars years. And it was considered a major victory for the Galactic Empire and the single worst battlefield defeat suffered by the Rebel Alliance during the Galactic Civil War.
Correct.
So the battle was an Imperial invasion led by Darth Vader, who aimed at destroying the Rebel Alliance's Echo Base hidden on the remote island of Hoth, and which they also had goals of capturing Luke Skywalker, in which they did have success with defeating the base, but they didn't find Luke Skywalker. So the leader of this attack was General... Well, not really general, but Darth Vader, as everyone called him, General Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And then it also introduced several key like bots, I guess you could say. It introduced a lot of ways they attacked. Like they introduced the Atat Walkers, which were commanded by General Maximilian, who was at the time
super gigantic.
Yes.
Ships of war, basically.
Pretty much. And his army was tasked with destroying Echo Base, but, I mean, it went well, but they had some struggles because the AT-AT walkers were doing damage, but they kind of went down because of, it's called, okay, so the Imperials, they had these things called snow speeders. Basically, a snow speeder hovered, and it went really fast, and the way that they brought down the AT-AT walkers is they'd take cables and they'd strap it to the front of their speed runners, and they would wrap them around the legs of the AT-AT walkers, and they would fall over, pretty much.
Yeah, and they also did that with their small ships. The problem with the AT-AT walkers is that they are very slow. They hit hard,
but they're just incredibly slow.
I think this episode, Empire Strikes Back, really shows how the Empire is such a threat. Like you obviously you see like the rebels losing in A New Hope, but you don't see them like lose bad. Okay, like they get demolished in this episode.
I feel like in this movie it really like shows how powerful the Galactic Empire really is. Like this really kickstarted that whole like, oh my God, they're terrifying. You know what I mean? We need to like do something about it. You know, try to take care of Darth Vader, but you gotta understand something. He's guarded, and he's also has he's got the power of the Sith, which is.
We should probably say this. This is actually, I think it's like 3 or 4 years after A New Hope.
Yeah.
So Luke Skywalker is already like a real rebel now. Like he's not a kid anymore. He's an adult, and more importantly, the relationship between Princess Leia and Han Solo is really, really made here.
Yeah.
Like you can tell that there's some time that's been on. They're more affectionate towards each other.
Right.
Everyone's more, they just know each other better.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, really important for this episode too.
I forgot to mention that. So during the Battle of Hoth, when it ended, Han Solo and Princess Leia, they escaped, but when they escaped, they figured out that they were betrayed by, what's the guy's name again?
Lando Calrissian.
That's a mouthful.
He is a fellow bounty hunter.
Yeah.
With Han Solo, which we saw. We met him in the first movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he
made an appearance. Then he.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then like after all this, Han Solo got frozen in carbonite, which is like this substance that basically freezes you until you can't move until someone unfreezes you, pretty much.
Yeah, so think just like normal ice, basically.
But it's dark.
But
it's like gray colored.
Star Wars mineral nonsense.
Right.
But it's basically like ice, and he's frozen there.
Exactly.
But that happens because when they get betrayed by Lando Calrissian, they, as we mentioned before, the bounty hunters.
Yeah.
Boba Fett, it was his, grand idea.
Mm-hmm.
And Darth Vader was there waiting when they went to see Lando, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm. In this movie, how they had all the, like, just the CGI. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. Because it makes you wonder, though, how, which was, this came out in 1980, which at the time you didn't really have a whole lot, but I mean, they pretty much took what they had. You know what I mean? Like, the company went with what they had, and they made it work. It was awesome.
Yeah. They got a pretty big buff after A New Hope.
Yeah.
Which is like a groundbreaking success. But anyways, back to on track. We were talking about Yoda.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker escapes as well, but he gets separated by Han Solo and Princess Leia during the battle. And Obi-Wan Kenobi, who we met in the first episode, comes back as a Force ghost.
Yeah.
And yeah, magic wizard stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, at first, if you're like a first time seeing Star Wars, you think to yourself,
what is this?
What is that?
Anyways, like the reason why we said in the first episode he lost Darth Vader, he didn't really lose. He let him win because once he was like comfortable with death and he was one with the Force, he could come back, even though he was dead, as a projection of himself in the Force, and then talk to Luke and teach him beyond the grave, where he told Luke after the Battle of Hoth to go seek Yoda, who was hiding on Dagobah.
Yeah.
And Yoda is, well, his ship crashes into Dagobah.
Yeah.
And they were looking around and they see Yoda. Of course, we didn't know who Yoda was, but they were looking for a little green man.
They're looking for a little green guy. His name was Yoda.
He was some masterful Jedi.
Yeah.
And then once he finds out that it was Yoda, Luke begins his training, and there's a lot of like trials and errors. You see just basic training stuff with Yoda on his back.
Right.
You see him balancing on like one arm and stuff, doing handstands.
Right. And
a bunch of other
and then
nonsense.
Luke Skywalker's confused. He's like, what is he doing? And then he figures out, okay, this is some magical force that I've never seen before, and I'm gonna
Karate Kid nonsense.
Yeah.
Basically.
And so then after all this, Yoda basically shows him a vision, right?
Yeah, so Luke Skywalker, as part of his training, goes into a cave. And the cave basically shows the person who's in it. It's like a trial, basically.
Yeah.
But it shows the person in it their greatest fear. And inside the cave, keep in mind it's all illusions, but he sees an illusion of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And fights it and like kills him instantly.
Right.
But when he looks into Darth Vader's mask,
it's him.
Yeah, it's his own face. And that really sums up Luke's point in the story right now, where he's trying to, further himself as a Jedi inside of the Force without trying to like tilt over to the dark side and become what his father did. And this is really like the start of Luke's struggling with the light side of the Force and the dark side of the Force. Then suddenly, randomly, Luke, because he was so strong with the Force, gets into basically a message from Princess Leia and Han Solo, like over the Force.
Yeah.
They were in trouble. And so, ignoring Yoda's wishes to stay there on Dagobah with him and learn, he gets up in his ship and goes over to Cloud City.
Right.
Where debatably the most iconic movie fight ever happens.
Yes.
Which is the first ever real fight between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader.
Well, in my opinion, it's the first fight between Jedi and Sith.
I mean, obviously we had Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right.
But Obi-Wan Kenobi was going to lose that anyways. This is a real fight.
Yes.
Between two men, like really in their prime. And basically he gets destroyed.
Yes, he does. And it's
the entire fight is just Darth Vader saying, "Join the dark side." Blah 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 blah.
He's trying to brainwash Luke into turning his ways.
Yeah, which is exactly what Yoda was warning him about. And thankfully, this time, Luke kinda didn't really win. I mean, he lost.
He lost big time.
He got his arm cut off.
Yeah.
His hand cut off.
Yeah.
And that's also where we see the most iconic line in all of Star Wars is, "No, I am your father." Anyways, and he jumps off the little balcony.
Yeah. And then it just goes from there. But
so,
what's your final thoughts, CJ? Like, I'm curious.
So, obviously this is my favorite of the Star Wars movies, as I said in the beginning of the podcast, and that's mostly because of how of a turn it takes. I mean, A New Hope is very happy-go-lucky space sci-fi adventure, while this one is really dark.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the entire time, the rebels and Luke are always losing.
Yeah, exactly.
And
right.
Aside from that being part of the hero's journey, where the hero has to hit a wall, or in this case, Darth Vader, and then train, come back, and hit that wall again, but this time overcome it.
Yeah.
But
like the phrase I've always went by is, if you hit a wall, you push through it. You know what I mean?
But this is still, I mean, yes, after A New Hope, Luke Skywalker was more of an adult.
Yeah.
But in this episode, he's still learning.
Yeah, he was really young in Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, he's not a complete Jedi like we see in the next movie.
Exactly.
And that's really the whole point of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Is overcoming that stuff.
Right. And when it comes to
becoming more of an adult, whatnot.
Yeah, when it comes to my final thoughts, to be honest with you guys, I think that, again, this is probably one of the greatest of all the old trilogy, because, I mean, it takes a turn, because when you watch the first movie, you think, oh, okay, it's going to be, like, constant winning because they have an advantage. But in reality, that's not how that works.
Yeah, they're called the Empire because they're an empire. Empires usually tend to win.
Exactly. But
I mean, we see that in the beginning of A New Hope when the rebels get shot by the stormtroopers.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really the only time we see like a genuine loss.
Yeah.
This entire movie
is just about loss after loss.
I mean, like the rebels in the Battle of Hoth got a few Atat Walkers,
right?
But they lost the entire base.
They
lost Han Solo. They lost Princess Leia.
Right, which is why I love it, because it's really dark, but even though it's dark, it just like it's more prone to reality. I feel like, because you're not always going to win every battle. But yeah, like, and I mean, plus for future movies, like this really took a turn, for a lot of like fans at first. They're like, okay, but then they see this, they're like, wow, like this is a lot different than we expected it to be.
Yeah. So especially the lightsaber fights, I feel like we have to say something about the lightsaber fights.
Mm-hmm.
In the first movie, the only like big lightsaber fight we see is Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader. And it's kind of slow, but they really kicked up the lightsaber fights in this one.
Yeah.
And the lightsaber fights, as dumb as people think they are, or like if you're not a Star Wars fan, like, oh, the laser swords. Like an actual story should be. A fight scene is only used in Star Wars to further the story.
Exactly.
The entire time when you're watching a lightsaber fight in the original trilogy, you're not like worrying like, oh, he's gonna win, he's gonna lose, oh my god, sword fight.
Exactly.
You're listening to what they're saying because they're talking the entire sword fight, because it's philosophies and contracting each other.
And for the new trilogy too, it's the same way. Like every fight you see, they're talking to each other, and right. Like like one's trying to like get to the other one's mind, but then the other one does like this cool flying trick move, and then it's
like my favorite duel, which I know we're not talking about the prequels, but I'm gonna mention it anyways because I feel like it is is the first or the last fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan on the battle of the fight on Mustafar.
Mustafar.
And they don't say a single word that entire fight except for the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
But you can feel the emotions in that fight.
Exactly. That's another reason why I like this movie. There's a lot of emotions you feel throughout. Just all of the old trilogy, I feel like, had the most like emotional feel. Then the more it goes on, you kind of expect, you know what I mean? Like, what's going to happen after the end of the battle. Like, okay, this person's going to win, and then they're going to go on with their merry way. You know what I mean? But it's all a matter of who wins, I guess.
But the lightsaber fights, just like violence in movies should be, in my opinion, unless it's like an action movie, but for the most part, violence in movies should be a tool in the story to further the story. And
exactly.
I think Star Wars is a masterful example of that.
It is, definitely.
So, I think that's good for today.
That's great. Yeah, that was awesome.
All
Hope
right,
you guys
let's wrap things up.
Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure you guys like on this video, subscribe to Saint C Productions for more and future episodes. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you later.
All right.